In this video, let's compare ChatGPT and Google Bard, I guess that's how we say it, for writing some JavaScript code. And I'll be generating some code for AppScript for this. So I'll go ahead and open the spreadsheet, go to extensions, AppScript, and basically I'll try to explain what I need in both and we'll see how they do. So in this case, I have this spreadsheet, this tab called sales, and this is my data. So let's start with something simple here. Let's try to create a new column that will have first and last names combined. I'll start here. I'm going to say I have a spreadsheet. Let's actually say Google Sheets spreadsheet with a worksheet called sales, I think. There it is. And then let's mention that we have first names in column A and last names in column B. Let's actually capitalize this last names part. Data starts in row 2 and ends in row 4. See, 2, 4. I need AppScript's code that will combine first and last names and output results in column, let's see, I. All right, so that's that. So let's see what happens. So that's our ChatGPT code. Let's go ahead and copy this. Put it in our function right here. Let's see how well this worked. So it's getting that sales tab. Then it gets our data from A2 through B4. So that's our A2, B4. So that's where our names are. It gets values, so that's going to be an array. And then it creates a new array to output the results. And then it basically just runs a loop through that data array here, and it does some what seems to be concatenation of first and last names. 0 being column 1 for first names, 1 being column 2 for last names. And then we push our results to this full name column right here as an array. So that's a good sign because we need array of arrays. And then we write our values from I2 through I4. So I think this code should work. Let's just go ahead and run this. And let's take a look. So as you can see, we have our results. John Doe, Jane Smith, Peter Brown in column I. Exactly how we want it. No problem. So let's try the same exact thing in Google Bard. So we'll copy this, go back here and paste the same exact question. Let's see what we get. Okay, so this is the answer. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And let's go ahead and paste it here and see if this code makes any sense. Right away, I'm getting syntax error. Let me just make sure I did copy things right. Yep, this is the closing bracket for this, and that's how far I went. So I did copy this correctly. So let's take a look and see what happened here. So it started by getting the spreadsheet. That should be fine. Then from that spreadsheet, we get the sheet called sales. That's fine too. Then from that worksheet, we get range. Well, what it did, it got first names range from A column and last names from B column. But that should be fine. And then it did this combined range. And this is where our final data is supposed to go, I2 through I4. So far, that should be fine. Now let's see what happened then. So we do this loop then, and we do this first names range, which is this. Get values, which is going to be an array of our first names, basically. And then get the length of that. That is correct. And then we go I++ to basically go one up on each iteration of this loop, and we start from 0. So I suppose that should be fine. And then what it does here, it does this var, and that is why we're probably getting that syntax error. So let's go ahead and remove that var. Shouldn't be here. And then what it does this combined names range. That's this. And then sets the value. And then it's going to get from the first names range the value in that position. I don't know if that's going to work because get value, that doesn't accept an index as far as I know. So let's just test this. So if we do dot get value. Yeah, this doesn't accept an index. So this is not going to work. So this whole thing is not correct. So let's go back and try to ask a follow-up question, because starting here, this whole thing is not correct. So let's just ask, this didn't work. I get syntax error. Let's start with that. Okay, so I got a new piece of code, and here, when I look here, see, it does seem to have removed that var. So that's a good sign, but it's still doing this get value in this index position, which that function doesn't accept. So this is, again, even though it's not going to give us syntax error, it's not going to work. Now let's see what error we get. This is pretty much the same code that I made, I guess, after removing that var, I believe. So let's just go back and paste this. Now this is, did I copy it right? There should be another bracket here. Yeah, I didn't copy this. Okay, fair enough. So let's just run this. It's going to give us some sort of error. Let's then give that error back to the prompt and see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to copy this error, paste it here. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so it seems to still do this get value thing in the position I. This is not going to work again, so I'm going to copy this, go back here and paste. Save this. So now what it does, it did the same thing up here. Here it goes, again, the same length of the first names range, which should not be a big problem. I mean, you could do this, even though it doesn't make a lot of logical sense to code this way. But then it tries to get the first name, and it does this get value. Get value, if you have like a single cell, you could get the value. Otherwise, this is a range of cells here, so it should be get values. So you could do something get values here and then do I over here, which is that position, and then I guess do this here too and get the I in this position, something like that. And then at this point, you could set those values. But again, you cannot do this like this because this is a whole range here, and you're setting just one value when you do set value. Therefore, this, again, you have to figure out the right place to actually set the value, which is why you should probably create an array and place that in array, but it doesn't do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask if it can do it by outputting the values in an array. So can we generate an array and then output the results to the spreadsheet? So see what it did? It created an answer that is completely disconnected from my previous questions. So what it's doing, it's just creating this array, and then it's trying to output the results. But even this is not going to work because it's doing this array not in the right format. It should be an array of arrays. Instead, it's just a regular array, and that's not going to work. So again, it's not generating any of this right. This is not working out. With ChatGPT, as you can see, with a single question, I got the results I wanted right away. It did this. Let's try a couple of more things here. I'm going to now ask it to get this beginning part of this emails before the email sign and put that in a separate column too. So let me just copy this, paste it here, and then I'll make some adjustments. So spreadsheet with worksheet called first names. First names I'm not going to mention anymore. So I'm just going to say emails are in column C. And then data starts in 2, ends in 4. We don't want to combine that anymore. Extract the part of emails before character and output the results in column, where do we want to put this? Let's do J now. All right, let's try that. So I'm going to copy this. So by the way, this is 3.5 for anybody who's interested. This is not 4. So I'll just go ahead and paste it here. Okay, so sales tab, we get the values from the range. We create a new array output, and then we'll loop through that. And then emails are in that column in the first position because we're just getting that range for C column, which makes sense. And then we split using this email character, get the first part. That makes total sense. And then we'll get that, what we called apparently username. And then we push it to an array, output the results. This looks perfect. This should work. So I'm going to run this. Let's go back and take a look. There it is. See, we get the results, no problem. Again, assuming that it failed the previous question I had, it's pretty much guaranteed to fail this too. But let's just give it a shot. So let's just copy this question, go back to this and paste it here and try to run this and see what we get. So I'll just copy the whole function this time and paste it below this as a separate function. And that's what it got us this time. So that's the function. So again, it gets the tab, it gets the data. So far, that seems to be fine. It gets the range. And then this is the part where it's going to output the range. But again, we get that same problem, right? It gets this loop, and then it's going to try to get this in this position I, which doesn't exist. Now, this part is fine. It will get the email. It will split and get the first part of the email. That line is okay. But the way it's interpreting the actual app script environment code, where it has to generate an array and put the results in an array, all of that is missing from here. So if we save this and try to rerun this, you'll see we're going to get an error. Because get value cannot have positions like this. I cannot have that. Now, if I, for example, copy and give this exception back, based on our previous example, it was not able to fix this problem. So there's my new code. So I'm just going to copy this now and paste it in this new function that we just did, starting from here, finishing here. And then again, the same thing persists. It's still doing this, trying to get the value in that position. That's not going to work. There it is. So let me get rid of this. Let's try to maybe do something else. Let's try to now do something with this dates. Let's grab this dates and then output the results like month, year, day in separate columns in some particular format. So let's go back to our ChatGPT, and then I'll try maybe to create like a generic function with Google Bard to see how it does compared to like AppScript's code. But let's first just generate some code using ChatGPT to just maybe get this data from this date column and extract the month, the year, day, two separate columns and see how it goes. So again, I'll copy this question. I'll paste it here. I'll just change that dates are in column D. Data starts in row 2, ends row 4. Need AppScript code that will extract, well, it's not going to extract emails anymore. So let's get rid of that. That will extract months in format June and years from that date, and output our results in columns, let's see, K, and let's actually delete this. Let's do J and K again. All right, let's see what happens. It went to utilities format date. Interesting, very nice. I thought it would go with JavaScript to do this, but it went with AppScript functions actually. So I'm gonna copy this and let's just put that up here. So again, let's see what it did. So it's gonna grab the sales tab, get the data, all of that is the same. So it gets the output array, loops through this data, and then it's gonna get that date, which is that date in that column. That's fine, this should work. And then it's gonna get this utilities format date, pass that date from here, and then it gets the time zone from our parent spreadsheet to get this information in that time zone. And then we get that in this format MMMMM. And then we got YYYY, which is for the year. So that's going to get us year and month, and then it's going to push it in this array format. Again, all of this looks exactly right. So let's just go ahead and run this. So that ran, no problem. Let's go take a look. And as you can see, we got this. This is May 2023. 2023, this is correct. This looks right. Now let's just go ahead and change some of these dates. Let's just try to rerun that just to make sure we get things the way they should be. Yep, so full month. Looks good. And we got our full year, so the formatting was right. We got our results. Looks excellent. So what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to go back to ChatGPT and ask if it can do this without using this utilities class. So basically just using JavaScript. So let's ask this, can you get the same without using utilities class? And that's our JavaScript dates. Let's just copy this code. Go back here and paste. Again, this looks good, assuming AppScript actually does support this method here. JavaScript would, for sure. So let's go ahead and run this. Yep, so that ran, no problem. We got the same exact results. Let's just remove this and rerun this just to confirm. There we go. We got our results. And now let's just ask one more question. Can you move date formatting to a separate function? So it did this in this array format. Let's just ask, can you make a separate function? Actually, instead of separate function, what we want is one function that will get us those formats based on a parameter. Let's do, can you update the function that will give us different date format based on a parameter? Okay, so let's see what it did. So it's going to create this format date function right here. It's going to pass the date and the format. Here, it doesn't mention what that format actually is. But then it's going to say if it's month year, then give us this. If it's year month, then give us that. And then otherwise give us this. And again, this is an example where ChatGPT didn't do very well. So this is not going to work. First of all, it's not going to pass this format here in the correct way. And then the actual formats that it made, it doesn't seem to be correct. So we want to do the month separately and then the year separately. But instead, it gets us this month, year, year, month. So that's not going to work. So let's just say this didn't work. Can you try again? So again, it's not passing the format here when I look at this code. And then going here, it did correct this to do month, year. That part is good. So seems like it did fix some of the parts in this function, but it's not using that here. Let's just mention you need to pass the format needed to format date function to get year and the month. So that I think looks better. See, now it did pass that to the function month and year, and then it does push this. So I think this should work. I didn't read everything here, but looks fairly good. So let's just copy and paste it, and then we'll see if this actually works. So let's just save this. So this part here, see, it gets the data, then it's going to loop through the data, then it's going to use this format date function, which is this separate function down here. First, it's going to pass the date with this month option to get the month, and then the year, and then we're going to do this. So it did this interesting like output length in a different way, but it should be fine from what I can tell. Let's just scroll down and look at this format date. So it's going to get the date and the format. So first, the date, what it does, it converts it to a JavaScript date here. Now, this is something that it shouldn't do because this is already a JavaScript date. So there's no need to create a JavaScript date. So it's not good. So then we have our formatted date, which is a variable apparently. And then if that format is month, it's going to do this to get the month. And then it's a year, it's going to do this. And then in all the other cases, it does that. So most of this seems good. The only thing that it shouldn't have is pretty much this. This shouldn't be here. It should just pass this date directly here as a JavaScript date. That being said, let's run this and see what that outputs here. And also this one, see, it does like format. It shouldn't pass the format here. So let's just get rid of this and let's run this function on top. Let's see what it says. Does it give us an error? I'm curious here, or does it still just give us some sort of output? So it did run without errors. Let's go take a look. Seems to still work. So apparently JavaScript date here, accepting a date, was able to make another date. Now that can create some probably time zone issues, but that being said, hey, it works. So we'll just live with that. Now, what I want to do now, I want to go back to Google Bard and see if it can actually create this format date function, just the function, to basically just give us the partial month or year we need. So let's just say need a JavaScript function that will accept a date as a date object. and a parameter called format. And depending on the parameter, will return full year or return month in format like January. So now we're not doing AppScript code at this point. This is just plain JavaScript. Let's see what it does. So it called it get year or month. That's the format. So the format will be either year or month. And if it's not correct, that's going to give us error. So that's nice that we have now error checking. That was cool. Now then we get the year out of it. We get the month out of it. I don't know why we need to get both of them because we need to return just one. But then if the format is year, it returns year. Else it returns month names. Where did this come from? Yeah, there is no array month names. It just basically made it up, assuming there's an array that it can grab this month out of it. This is not going to work. So basically what this is going to do, it's going to say month names is undefined. So let's just go ahead and say month names is undefined. And let's see what happens. So now what it did, see, it made this array of month names from January through December. And then it created this function and it puts this array outside of the function. But then it's going to do these two things. It's going to get us the year. It's going to get us the month. And the way this months work, it's basically if you do get month right here in JavaScript, for January, it gives you 0, for February 1. So something like that. So what it's going to do, it's going to add 1 here. So January is going to become 1 because it would give you 0. The problem with that, since it's getting that from the array, 1 from the array would be actually February. So instead of January, it would give you February. Instead of February, it's going to give you March. So it's always going to be off by a month. So let's just say instead of January, I get February. So let's see what happens. Okay, so what it did, essentially the same thing. It's still doing this +1 and it's giving me the same problem. So it's still going to be off. So this +1 essentially shouldn't be here. If this +1 wasn't here, this would have worked. But it's not able to correct it. So I'm going to do still the same problem. Make sure you're using the JavaScript. So yeah, it failed again. So yeah, it does generate some code. Would it work? Not really. You would have to fix some things. But if you want fully working code, this is not it. This is not going to work. Now let's try to ask this same question right here in ChatGPT. So I'll just make a new chat here. And again, we'll use 3.5. Paste it here. And see if we get a better answer. So let's see. So again, it's going to do this date format. And I like the way it chose the function name as opposed to the other one, which was get month or year. This is just format date. So we got, if the format is a year, then it's going to return the year. That should be fine. And then if the format is a month, it's going to get you this array of months, which is the right place to declare this array if you're going to do it this way. And then get that in that get month position. See, it didn't do that +1, which will be correct. And in all other cases, it gives us this return error. This function will work just fine. So if we copy this, go back here and just replace this. And apparently I'm not copying the right thing for some reason. Let's just copy the right thing. So using the same function, format date now that was created, if we run this previous thing, it should still work. So if I go back here and rerun this code, you'll see we got the results. No problem. So one question here, and we got the correct results. Now, just for sake of trying, let's also try the same exact question with GPT-4 and see if it outputs anything different. I guess the thing we should understand that even with 3.5, it doesn't mean it's gonna write the same code if I ask the same question again, but just for the sake of doing it, let's just do GPT-4, rerun the same thing. Taking longer. But essentially, this is exactly the same thing. So as you can see, even with just standard JavaScript without AppScript involved, ChatGPT gives us the correct code. Google Bard gives us something that looks like a code that might work, but it's not actually accurate. And that should do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.